So we'll call it, time-wise, we're ready to roll now.
Yeah. Okay, we're live now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Welcome everybody to the meeting of the Gwent Crematorium Joint Committee. I'm Councillor Steve Evans. I'll be chairing it for this year. If you look at the first item, we've got any apologies for absence?
Councillor Smith and Councillor Simmons.
Councillor Howells.
Councillor Howells as well.
Right. Thank you. And then we'll move on to item 2 then, if nobody's got any more. Declarations of interest within any of the paperwork. Has anybody got anything they'd like to declare?
Steve, where do I get all the paperwork, please? I can't find it.
You should have been sent it electronically
I haven't had any.
on email.
Okay. I can quickly send it for Councillor.
Is there any chance you could send it over?
Yeah.
I've got some years to it. I will share it with you anyway. Then,
Right,
if
thanks.
you want to see it after, there's nothing. If it is your first time, you'll probably be aware of most of this. But if you can send it over, you can have a quick browse, and if there's anything you want to read, then you're quite happy to do that.
Right, thank you.
If we move on to item 3, then it's a minutes of the previous meeting. That's on page 3 and page 4. Is there anything anybody would like to raise on the minutes? No?
No, looks good for me.
Are we quite happy to agree them minutes? Yeah. Right, thank you. We'll then move on to item 4, which is the draft account 2024-25. Now that's page 5 to 20. Who's going to be?
Yeah, that's me. That's great. Thank you.
Go with it. Excellent.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. So I'm here to present the draft accounts for 24-25 today. I have got Appendix 1, which is the detailed outturn analysis for 24-25, the annual return. So it's the annual return that I need approving and signing today. I've got cremation numbers, and I've also got an Appendix 4, which is relating to the refurbishment and associated building works. So I'll be just discussing a bit about that as well. So for today, I'm asking for you to receive and approve the draft accounts, to approve the annual return, and I need a signature, and then to note that the distribution of £450,000 was made for this financial year. And note also the carry forward reserve balances of £859,532. So moving on to page 6, we've got the background, which is just telling you that when we discussed this in the last meeting, which was back in January, the projected outturn was £440,000 surplus. That was prior to the distribution. However, the draft outturn position is a bit better than that, so shows a surplus of 497,000. The budgeted surplus was 569,000, but we reported that we weren't going to achieve that surplus throughout the year. So table 1 on page 6 outlines the variance analysis to show you where the variances are, and I'll just discuss a little bit about this. So as we reported in previous meetings, so nothing major has changed since the position in January, but I'll just detail some of the big variances. So as you know, throughout the year and the previous year as well, there were lots of staffing changes. So we had some agency support in. This had a significant impact on the outturn position and resulted in an overspend of £62,000. However, permanent positions have now been appointed and staffing has now levelled off. With regard to premises, the savings on premises is mainly attributable to utilities. So in the prior few years, we increased the budget based on the inflationary rates that we were told to apply. We reduced the budget last financial year, but we still are under that amount. So basically the figures that I've projected here, budget actual and the variance for gas and electricity. So that will then be reflected in this financial year's budget. Supplies and services. We had a £24,000 overspend on fees of the professional. This is consistent with an overspend in this area last financial year. So this is an area that we'll be looking at to monitor throughout the year to see if we need to put additional budget provision into that particular area and maybe move it from somewhere else. Capital financing. So the committee agreed to repay the Mercury abatement loan, which was £265,000. This had been funded from revenue with capital financing costs, so therefore there's an underspend relating to the capital financing costs. We've then got the income. So the position at the end of December indicated an outturn forecast of £162,000 less income than budgeted. However, the final outturn position shows a more favourable position of £140,000 less than budget. Quarter 4 cremations were 400 compared to 400 in the previous financial year compared to 422 in the same quarter for 24-25. So we had an increase in the last quarter. So that is to do with the 24-25 budget. So that's the figures relating to that. And then the committee is asked to approve those draft financial outturn figures and to sign off the annual return. So before I go on to any of the other parts, has anybody got any questions relating to 24-25?
Yeah, I got one, Joe. Is it incorporated any of the for any slippage going into the new year or any projects we got on?
Yeah, so do you mean with regard to the budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the new financial year 25-26, we reduced the cremation numbers that we were projecting. So the budget was based on a reduced cremation numbers based on the fact that the crematorium would be running reduced services during the period of the refurbishment works.
Yeah, no, excellent, thanks. Anybody else got any questions or anything like that?
Can I just ask about the reduction in the gas and electricity costs? Is there a reason for that lack of use or reduced? Yeah,
no. So the use is exactly the same. All that's happened is the budgets were inflated because of the increases in utilities in the previous years. So we reduced the budget slightly, but I think we can reduce it further again. I think this has been reflected in 25-26 budget now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else got any questions before Joe moves on? No?
Okay, so it's only then moving on to 25-26. So we haven't really reached the first monitoring period for the new financial year at the moment. So usually our first monitoring cycle is in June period. So when we get to the end of June period, we'll then start our forecasting for the next financial year. So we haven't quite reached that yet. So I haven't got full financial figures to present to you for 25-26 at the moment. But what I did want to do is just highlight, this is the budget that's been set. So the budget for last year compared to the budget that's been set for this year, which was approved by the committee. What the reserve balances are. We also have the repairs and renewals reserve, which we set up to account for all of these type of one-off expenses that were hitting the crematorium revenue budget. And was causing a bit of an overspend. So we set up this repairs and renewals reserve. So we've got 100,000 in there at the moment. So the report is just highlighting that the cremator replacement works have started and additional costs have been identified. So we just wanted to make you aware at this early stage. Some of these have been discussed previously in meetings. So with regard to the roof works, the essential roof works. So those have already been discussed previously, but it's just really to highlight the fact that we've had some costings in. Appendix 4, which is on page, just quickly look, Appendix 4, I'm trying to find. anybody's got it.
Page 8.
Yeah. Thank you. Appendix.
Copies.
Oh yeah, sorry, appendix. I've got it on page 20 if you printed it out. So appendix 4. So basically this is just highlighting the summary of the costs. So we've got additional costs on the existing capital project, which was for the cremator replacement works. So we had the cremator replacement works capitalised. We had the associated costs coming through into revenue, which will begin in this year. The costing for the additional works is £45,000. This will be an overspend to the existing project that we have running and will incur an additional £6,000 worth of capital financing costs. So it just means that the project cost is more than we anticipated it to be. Associated capital financing costs that will come out of revenue contributions will be an additional £6,000. 73,000 has been identified as associated refurbishment costs. Again, these have been discussed previously in committee meetings where we've said that whilst the refurbishment work, while the cremator replacement works are going on, we would take that opportunity to start some works in the chapel. So some of these costs have been discussed previously, but again, it's just to make you aware that these are the costings that have come through for those works, and we're hoping that those will be funded from revenue. We'll keep the committee updated. When we do the next meeting, we'll obviously have a budget monitoring position, and we'll be able to give you more of an idea of how those costs are going to be funded from revenue. So that's with regard to that item. And then the other one, as I said, previously discussed in committee meetings, is the essential roof replacement works. These have been costed at 91,000 and due to commence on the 7th of July. The repairs and renewals reserve, this was set up to deal with any of these one-off costs. So we're recommending that we use the £100,000 reserve to account for this 91,000 on the essential roof repairs. That would then have no additional capital financing cost. So there will be no impact on the revenue budget, but that's for the committee to decide on that. So that's the information that I wanted to present just with regard to 25-26 additional costs. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask about that?
I have, Joe. It's with the 100,000, particularly for the roof part of it, do you think that's sufficient? Because understandably, when they take the roof off, there may be other issues they may find which will probably need more finance. You see what I mean? So
yeah.
So you have loads of contingency.
Oh, that's right. Like, yeah.
So
you know, we set a figure, but as you know, sometimes you find the unexpected, and they may come at a cost. So that's great. No, that's brilliant. That's answered my questions. You got away with that one, Joe.
Thank you. I'm glad about that because I'm no roof specialist.
Anybody else got any other questions regarding the financial bit? Well, you've done that well, Joe, and it's presented lovely. So
amazing, thank you. So all I just wanted to ask then, so I think on the recommendations we have got, I need an approval for the final accounts, just to say that you're happy with the final accounts that have been presented. I'll need
vote from members, or do you just want a yes or a no?
Yeah,
no members in agree then?
Yeah, that would be great, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and online, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
perfect, thank you. And then the other thing was just to, are the committee happy for the associated work for the roof replacement to be taken from the repairs and renewals reserve? If we could just have like an idea of whether you're happy with that going forward. Obviously, we'll discuss it in more detail when we present the next budget monitoring, but if you're happy for that to take place, that would be great.
Members, yeah, everybody okay? Yeah, that's unanimous. Anyway, so, yeah, thank you for that. Anyway,
that's lovely. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I read it was quite easy. Normally, a lot of it's comedy cook, but they do it was quite straightforward. We move on to the next one, then, which is facilities management, which is North, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going back to my younger days, going to Selfridge Street. That's what
bit more gobbledygook, you know. Maintenance repairs have been pretty standard for the period, so there's nothing really to report there. After the last committee meeting, myself and a colleague met with Kerry, Joanne, Mike, and some representatives of the funeral directors committee. They had some concerns about our plans to shut the crematorium down for a couple of days a week, and that's all the right questions, to be fair. Could it be done in work, in the normal working day, etc., etc. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think the outcome was that we've all sort of agreed that we're doing all that we can to provide a service.
So quite acceptable. Myself, James Tubby, and Kelly Peak, well acceptable, or will you come over?
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. So that was obviously.
It's nice to find a compromise, but I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, we're going to deal with that one. And unfortunately, if we've got you not.
Yeah. Because we were changing tiles, well, we were changing tiles in Sillington, we were initially advised that we wouldn't need full planning application and then get applied by a local development certificate. Unfortunately, that changed in Endeavour, and we were told that we would have to do full planning application. So we got all the drawings information together and submitted that in April.
Well, then I would have told mine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Myself and Coast actually sit on that, so
Yeah.
that's fine. We'll one of us will move that forward, won't we?
Yeah. But it's already been accepted.
Oh, that's all right then.
So
We just cheer them up.
yeah. Obviously, we couldn't have any planning today because the roof works are tied into the larger cremator works and everything else. There's a big program of works going on. Yeah, good news is we did get planning to come through on the 4th of June. So
Oh, that's good then. You know, our plan is like it can be quick or long,
yeah,
you know, in between.
yeah, it was weird. So it was long to get to that period, but it was a lot quicker than what we needed before. Anyways, yeah, even more good news, I suppose. The results of the bat survey came back in our favour for once. There was no evidence of bats in the original roof. However, there are bats who are still on the site, so as a part of the project, under specified planning requirements, you installed 3 bat boxes, some trees adjacent to the north side of the building, which I think are in place, carrying they put them in. I'm not telling you that they're already done. Yeah, so the plan works, as Joanne mentioned, we'll start on the 7th and roll on from there. Just briefly about new cremator works.
Can I ask a question on that? I can't find the flag on it.
If you hadn't finished your report, Stuart, I'll bring you in. I was waiting for you because Councillor Ashley, you could on environmental stuff for
That's
total
about what I was going to ask about the bats.
environmental champion. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, just really on new cremator works. Final design is near completion, and we're undertaking the preparation required to start work on the building operations in tandem with the roof. So that's what we're in train.
Maybe that comes to Ashley. Do you want to ask me a question?
Yeah. The have you had the ecologist report on the bats up there? I'm intrigued about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, we've had the ecologist report that was submitted to planning along with the drawings. Their recommendation was to put the 3 bat boxes in, which we've done.
I presume that was part of your planning application, was it? It was an officer's report by the sound of it, not anything that's gone to committee.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. And you've got a fair amount of ecology around there, haven't you? Because every time I go up there, it's quite a rich site as far as ecology.
Yeah, I was very surprised and pleased that they weren't in the roof, to be honest. But
Yes, they probably don't like. Well, to find a point on it, they probably don't like that as it's probably too warm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ashley. The other thing I was going to ask: have you lifted to make sure there's no bees in there? Because I watched somebody yesterday and they lifted the roof and there was a whole swarm.
no, but there's no bees spotted on the inside, so which they would sag into the inside of the construction.
I was also going to suggest, because it's a very well kept grounds and you've got quite a lot of stuff there that from point of view attracting things, it wouldn't surprise me if you've got stuff up there.
So yeah, everybody's happy with the report from North. You know, they're doing everything right, they're ticking all the right boxes of planning and everything else. So when, you know, what happens moving forward. Is everybody okay with all that?
Yeah.
Nobody else want to say anything? No? Great. Get out of that one then.
Yeah.
And we move on to item 6 then, which is the funeral director's report, which is
Mr. Chairman, only to say thank you very much to Kelly, Carl and the staff at Gwent Crematorium. The meeting went off well. Myself, James Tully and Kelly Peak thought it went off well. The only thing I want to bring up, and I don't know whether I'm wrong with you, Kelly, like the committee unanimously agreed to approve the option 2 by Newport North representative. Option 2 described the following to work on weekends. Didn't we make an agreement at that meeting that we would close every 3 fortnight? Am I correct?
Yeah, we close in for fortnight initially, and then for the 4 weeks afterwards, we're working weekends to allow cremations to take place Thursdays and Fridays.
But we are closing for definitely a complete fortnight full stop.
Yeah, because of the associate who works with the cremator at the rear in the crematory, we wouldn't be able to receive any coffins during that 2-week period.
Well, we expect it, but it wasn't minutes at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman. That's why.
All right, yeah.
That's why I wanted.
Yeah, no.
Other than that, there was no reports from any of the funeral directors for this meeting.
Mhm.
So that makes it easy. And thank Cal for what he's put forward to us.
Yeah, the only question I was going to ask before we go to manager's report, and I know you said about the yellow lines which Torwine are looking into. Have they given you a timeline or anything like that?
Yeah, give us a timeline, and we've passed that on to Mike, and I think you forwarded it on to the funeral director.
I forwarded them into the funeral directors, and naturally we've got to wait till then.
Yeah, I know we, you know, I put a request in and everything, and they move pretty quick, but
That was Kelly Peak that brought it up going back about 5 years ago.
you know, all I was saying, particularly with the planning thing, it could either be a short or a long one, or if you don't G them up, then it could be a long one. No, that's fine. Anybody else got any questions regarding the funeral director's report? Or anything they want to add? No? No, that's a nice one. So, yeah, just an easy one this week. And we go to item 7, which is the manager's report, page 21 to page 28. So don't burn yourself out.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go to the first page of the manager's report. There's the general statistics for memorial and tribute sales, and then our actual counting cremations for the year so far from January up until May. Then on the next page, then we've got a bit of a comparison which demonstrates the type of cremation services that we're undertaking and the ones from exactly the same period the year previous. So there's been notable change in the number of direct cremation services that are being received with crematorium since the price reduction that was agreed from April. Direct cremation services are growing in popularity across the bereavement industry, and the latest information suggests that direct services make up at least 14% of all funeral services nationally. With our pricing and range of services, we're now able to ensure that our constituents can utilise their local trusted family funeral directors for their preferred funeral option at our community crematorium. So I'd like to thank all of the councillors and the committee for agreeing on those price reductions, and they've proved incredibly popular with funeral directors and families alike. We've just been through an incredibly busy period, which has become a little more difficult for funeral directors given the added delays that the new medical examiner scheme has brought. Families can now be expected to wait in the region of 4 to 5 weeks for a cremation service due to the time required to complete paperwork. It has not really influenced us much, the crematorium. We are mindful of the impact that this has on the bereaved families and funeral directors. These issues have been a concern as we move toward a temporary closure, for instance. However, we continue to work closely with the funeral directors to assist and meet their demands where we possibly can. Given that we'll be closing shortly, the staff and I are excited to see the positive changes that this period will bring, but we also have plenty to catch up on both externally and internally during these closure periods once they get all that done. Move on now to staff updates, and Logan Thomas have now passed his cremator technician course with excellent feedback from the ICCM assessor. With Logan's success, we now have 6 fully qualified technicians at the crematorium. We're in discussion with the FBCA to register all 6 technicians onto a national registration scheme. When this has been done, all qualified staff will be able to partake in FBCA accredited continual professional development. This will then provide staff with all the latest industry news and advancements and legislative changes as they happen, making sure we're fresh with everything the staff need. So in terms of moving on to the service schedule and related works, we briefly discussed that. Now we've informed all funeral directors of our impending temporary closure, and below we've got a detailed look at the closures and what will happen at site during these periods. So from Monday the 23rd of June to Thursday the 4th of July, facultative technologies will work through the evenings and weekends during the period to remove cremators 1 and 2. These works, however, will not affect cremation services on our daily timetable. Then from Monday the 7th of July to Sunday the 20th of July, the roofing works to start, along with building works for the charging area of the crematory. In addition, the full chapel refurbishment will take place between these dates. There are some attached drawings at the rear demonstrating the finished look of the chapel. And for those in the room, I've got some bits and pieces to show you what fabrics and finishings we will be adding. But sadly, during this fortnight, there will be no services available at the crematorium. From Monday the 21st of July to Sunday the 17th of August, 4-week period, the roofing works will continue from Saturday to Wednesday throughout this 4-week period until completion. Facultative technologies will continue the installation of the new cremator during this period. We'll offer full cremation services only on Thursday and Friday of each of the 4 weeks. In addition, we will accept direct cremation services with no family attending throughout the day on Monday to Wednesday for the 4 weeks. We'll offer webcasts of these direct services at half price during this period so that families who wish to have their service somewhere else prior to cremation at the Gwent can watch the commitment. From Monday the 18th of August to Friday the 31st of October, facultative technology will continue to install the new cremator, and these works, however, will not affect services or the running of the site. Additional works have become necessary because of the new cremator installation, and these will go ahead as soon as possible with no disruption to service or other works, and as such have no definitive time frame. These include the replacement of the mechanical charging machine within the crematory, along with the repair and increase in space within our coffin storage room. Our current charger is a single level trolley that receives coffins from our catafalque and is then utilised to store coffins or charge them into the cremators. The current charger is at the end of lifespan and cannot operate at different levels. The new cremator and our remaining cremators will vary slightly in height, and as such the new charger will need to be able to operate at these levels. The new refrigeration unit is required within the coffin storage room at the crematory. Also, we'll be creating additional space within this storage so that we can increase resilience and maximise efficient use of the cremators. This will work well with a new charging trolley that can work at different levels. And there's a little note at the bottom to say that the report was written prior to planning permission and that service, whereas Carl has now informed us they were successful. So the works are due to go ahead from the 7th of July for the closures. And at the back we have a couple of little drawings to show you how the rear of the chapel will look once the decoration and refurbishment is complete. So I'd like to extend an invite to any of the committee members who'd like to come and have a little look post works, and we'd be more than welcome to come and see how things have progressed. In addition, while I've wrote the report before I went away for a week's leave, and during that time the ICCM have been back in touch in terms of the recycling and metal scheme, and while the committee have nominated 2 charities to receive the first initial payment, the second annual payment is due to come out now in August. So I propose that we continue with the 2 charities that were nominated this year, but in September's meeting, if committee members would like to make nominations for the next round, in the next financial year, that'll be something that Taylor can send some information out about prior to our next meeting so that we can get nominations.
Mr. Chairman, can I step in on that?
Yeah.
Am I, you know, as I'm not a committee member, am I allowed to offer my,
Yeah, but only
am I allowed to offer a charity of my choice?
I don't actually why not.
Asking the question.
you know,
You can put it forward, can't you?
Yeah.
And then we'll have a vote on it at the appropriate committee meeting.
yeah, no, fine.
Can I just say something, please, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I have emails and letters sent through quite often, maybe a couple of months. So I have a folder of charities that have requested to be thought of in this time. Would it be all right if I pass this on to Taylor for you to have a look at as well?
Yeah, we were open to all suggestions, whatever, you know.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the members will decide who to, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, that's no problem. Anybody else on that? Yeah? Like to
Yes,
come in?
please.
Yes.
Yeah, great report, really interesting, thank you. Just to say that the 5th of July, you said the Thursday the 4th of July, it's a Friday. Friday is the 4th of July, so therefore the Monday is the 8th as well. It's just a typo, that's all. But also, can I ask, would the fact that the numbers of the crematorium services has gone up, has that impacted on, you know, the private crematoria that are out there, or is this just the sign of a general sort of increase? I know obviously we've lowered the costs and that's explained really well in the report. I just wondered if numbers of others, you know, have dropped down. Perhaps the funeral directors would have an idea of that.
Councillor, we were losing out on that part of the business in terms of direct cremation and direct attend cremation. I know that a lot of funeral directors were avoiding us due to costs. So and now we welcome in lots of new funeral directors that we haven't seen for quite some time.
That's good.
That is
So it's
quite
more
good.
competitive then. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that answers that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions? I got one, but I've got them. Come in.
You know the drawings that we've got here, were other variations to the design considered?
Yes. Yeah, the firm that we've got in to design it, they design crematoria across Britain. We've done before with other authorities, and they've come up and tabled a design that best fits the area and the colours that we already have, especially with the timber seating and the ceiling, which is a beautiful part of the chapel. Unfortunately, the top end of the chapel is quite scruffy, it's a bit cluttered, and it looks very, very dated. So in all fairness, the firm, they've put some ideas our way, that we've had some consensus from funeral directors and other parties as to where we move forward, but generally, the main design that they put forward was the one that we felt we needed to go with. Immediately we saw it really.
And I think it's good to, you know, have something that's modern, you know, where obviously nothing's been done for quite a few years and want to, you know, bring things up to date, don't we, in terms of,
Yeah, and the timber that's at the rear there will reflect the same timber that's in the pews and the timber at the back of the chapel quite nicely really. And the colour of the curtains and the carpet then brings the ceiling into the chapel a little more, freshens things up and makes it a warmer environment.
yeah, looking forward to seeing it all done.
Yeah, it'd be nice when it does.
It's going to look great.
I got two. Yeah, no, I am, to be honest with you. Yeah. I got two questions. With the dates opening and closing, are they achievable? Right, is there anything built in case anything happens untoward, or is that what we fixed in stone? And the other bit is, with the roofing, which we said, is it perfectly acceptable to take the weight of the solar panels we're going to put on?
I defer that one to Carl.
Yeah, so to answer your second part first, yes, we are using a lighter weight roof tile for the solar panels, so that offsets that. And regarding the timescale, there is a little bit of contingency built in, but to be honest, with roofing, it's always very difficult because it's weather dependent, but there are ways to get around it.
Yeah.
So
My only concern is, as you know, when equipment is coming, it doesn't always come when you expect it to come, even though it may be on a timeline.
yeah, it's
And I didn't want to throw the whole thing out of sync.
You know, obviously, when we work the timeline to start on site, that includes things like ordering materials and the waiting time for that. So it's all in training. It's good, no delay. expected.
We all know we order the right path and they come to the wrong path. And you get all the information you want. Anybody else got anything before we?
Yeah, I'm new to this, and I have been to some, unfortunately, some other crematorium. How are you going to update the look? Because you are right, having been up there a few times, it does look of its age. I've been intrigued to know how you're going to how the people that are advising us are going to update it. I presume it's wood and colour, is it?
Yes, essentially, councillor. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful space. It just looks a little tired.
It does.
So I think
Yes.
with these new colours, new fabrics, they will bring new life into the building and match what is really a beautiful chapel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lovely building.
we're all looking forward to seeing it, and we invite you along to come and have a look at the work when it's completed.
Is that presumably paint job and new? Because I've been to the one in Cornwall, for instance, where my dad died, in places like that. It's interesting to see different approaches to this, and obviously theirs is much more modern, and they put things like slate and wood in there. It's not intended that we do that, because it must have cost a fortune, but it's interesting just to see what other people do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you for that, fantastic. Anybody want to raise anything before we close the meeting? No? Anything? No? Well, thank you for all attending and for your input today. There's nothing else to discuss, and we'll close the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.